G'day folks, we are at Mill & Farm with Nick Steiner, who is the founder of Mini Farm Projects. And I've actually been to Mill & Farm before because they supply the regeneratively grown food for Food Connect and the food boxes. And when I was here, they mentioned about some person farming for people who are struggling to actually eat food every day. And so I got in contact, well actually Nick got in contact with me through LinkedIn. Sort of the rest is history really. I've had a conversation with Nick and we got on really well and we're very similar in our thinking. So welcome Nick to the back of the ute.
Thanks for having me, thanks for coming down.
Can you tell us really then, what are you doing, what's your aspiration and your goals that you want to achieve with the Mini Farm Project?
Sure, so the Mini Farm Project is a registered Australian charity and its purpose is to resolve food insecurity by creating a network of charity farms to grow food for people in need. And what we've done is showcased a site here at Mill & Farm. We have half an acre and a portion is sold to self-fund the farm and then another portion is actually given away, and we've partnered with Meals on Wheels on this site because they helped us fundraise the farm, and so they get free produce every week. And the reason why we give free produce is because charities in most cases have to pay for it and we think we can do better.
Okay, so where did this idea come from?
Look, I was mulling it around since 2010 for a while, thinking what can I do for the community. And I enjoyed gardening, and back then I was working in hospitality. It was really stressful, doing 6.5, 7 days a week. And I was watching Hugh Findlay Whittingstall's River Cottage, and it's a great little show, and he had a small holding, and every time I watched that I was instantaneously relaxed, and I was like, I want to do what this guy does. And I was like, well, I can do all these skills and I've always wanted to do something for the community. It's like, how about I grow food and give it to people? And then I was like, how about we set up as a charity? Because there's a need for it. Because at this time I just saw gut putty going into charities to feed people to the packet food and the canned food. And I was like, there's not much nutrients in there. We need to have nutrients. And that's why I looked at growing fresh fruit and vegetables. We're moving into fish and chicken eggs and bush foods as well down the track, but this is a start.
That was one of the things that grabbed my attention actually when we had our first conversation, was the fact that of course when you're trying to feed people who are struggling, we're giving them food that isn't nutrient dense.
No, it's not. Like us talking, we're nutrient deficient, and the people who are watching, we're all nutrient deficient in some way because of the way that our food supply is managed. We've lost that nutrient component. The people who are in need have a worse condition than us. They're more nutrient deficient, and in the homelessness community there's a wide range of mental illness issues caused by nutrient deficiency, which I think we can resolve if we're actually pumping them up full of nutrient dense food, so it builds them back up again and then they can make decisions. So instead of just feeding somebody, having the cycle continue, it's actually, no, let's actually change the person at the same time by providing good quality nutrient food.
Now you said you've been doing this for a year and a half, is it?
It's a year and a half on this site, which is our new showcase. COVID killed all of our small farms in the city. We had a number of farms showcasing that we can grow food anywhere. So we had a grow bag farm, we had a raised garden bed, we also had another farm in an office building in their existing beds that we converted over. And the idea was to have a mobile farm that utilized the spaces to actually grow food for the inner community. So the goal is, with our farm network, we want to see in the next 5 years 100 farms from Brisbane to Cairns. But we don't want to grow the food here and then send it down to Sydney or Perth. We actually want to localize the issue where we're now sourcing where are the people, where's the need, can we put farms in those areas. So it's like Brisbane buying strawberries that are grown in Cairns, and then the Cairns people are buying strawberries that are grown in Brisbane. We have that transportation issue. I don't want to copy that. I want to actually resolve the food security issue on a local level, and that's why we're looking next in the Logan Lee and Logan region, south of Brisbane. They have 47,000 residents and people who require daily food assistance. And they came to me and said, can we put a farm there? And I said, yeah, we can do that. So we're building a half-acre farm at Logan Lee State High School. We're in fundraising at the moment, and the idea for that is to supply the students who are in need at the school with free produce, because there's a lot of the kids go hungry. Then also support Oz Harvest and Meals on Wheels as the free produce and to give to the local community. And that's going to be the first presence of about 10 farms in that area to actually resolve the food insecurity issue that they have down in there. And so it's a regional aspect that we're looking at.
So your template here works?
It works, yeah. It's been going for 1.5 years now. We've just gone through the worst 6 months with all the flooding and the rain. We're just scraping by. I was touch and go there for a while, and this was actually an important thing for our learning and development. When the floods happened in late February, we weren't as affected as some of the other poor farmers, like loop growers down the road. They were 2 meters underwater. Wow. And everything was just washed away. And our friends down at in Oxley at Neighbourhood Farm, they were underwater as well. So we weren't as bad, but what happened is the water actually came through so hard, it actually washed the top layer off the field, and all the seedlings, all the seeds that we planted, everything was washed away. So what that means is there's like 5 weeks of no cash coming in because there's no produce. And also we had to stop giving the produce for free because there was nothing in the field and it was all going to rot. And you couldn't even walk in there for a week because it was just mud. Yeah. So that was a big thing for our learning and development, because we're looking at a network of charity farms. We're not looking at one, and we're not looking at just having a small farm with 2 tomatoes. We're actually looking at resolving the issues. So with what happened here, our learning is that yes, the network would work well once we had all the established farms, because then we can rely on the whole network if 1 or 2 of the farms turned off for a period of time. And that was a really good learning. It was hard, and it was exciting, but I don't want to go through that again. But look, this is the age of targeted weather events. Yeah. We're going to have these more and more, and we need to adapt the way that we grow. And that's why we're looking at bush foods, because they're the things that have been here for thousands of years. And that's going to be a really great reconciliation program for our charity with the local traditional custodians and owners in each of the communities that we want to work in, should they choose to actually partner and actually grow these foods. And in most cases, they have more protein and nutrients than the European stuff that we're used to. Yep. This is the sort of stuff that we want to get into, because we're growing food for those in need, but we want to make sure that they have the most healthiest, nutritionist food possible for our people. So
when you're talking about that network of farm, brilliant idea. When a couple of those farms do go down for whatever reason, how is their income affected?
How we do the income model is we encourage businesses to sponsor a bed in the local community. Like this farm here in Sanford, Logan Lee, each farm is divided into garden beds. So at the moment they're about 20 meters by about 0.75. So we offer them up for sponsorship for a year, and they get a whole year program where we give them each month a social media post, copy, photo update, and then they have touch points for their customers and go, look what we're doing in the community, this is what they're doing, rah, rah, rah. Instead of them just giving us money and we don't see them for a year, we actually want to change the conversation with them and their customers to actually say, no, when you shop with us, you're growing food for those in need because we're supporting the mini farm project. So that's one way. The other way is we're releasing a campaign, which is a climate initiative campaign of shouting a mate a coffee once a month. And what that means is an individual can shout us the value of a coffee, which is only $3.70. You can't get a coffee for $3.70, so it's less than the value of a coffee. And what we want to do with that is we want to be a numbers game where we want to look at 100,000 Australians giving us $3.70 a month. We can build a new farm every month. And those people would be personally responsible for building those farms because they're paying for it. So that's another way. And then the other portion is when we don't sponsor all the beds, we actually sell a portion of the produce to wholesale and retail customers. So what happens when a farm turns off, ideally the other farms will be able to cover the costs of, it's either the staff for 4 or 5 weeks that need to be covered, so we can move stuff into other areas, or if we have a sinking fund and we have the donations, that will actually cover that, so we shouldn't have too much of an issue.
Now when you're talking about farms, it's sort of more about land that's available for growing food. It's not an actual technical farm. Is that right?
It's not a large-scale monoculture farm. So we're talking about urban and peri-urban market garden farms. So the style that you see here behind in Sanford is an international market garden style farm that's grown in the ground with the rows, everything's nice, and we grow certain produce. What we want to look at is to be able to have fruits as well, so we're looking at orchards in the future. And so when we find an orchard that we can take over, we'll then put in chickens and guinea fowl in there so we can have the eggs. And then we're looking for spaces where we can have grow bag farms or raised garden beds on land that is unused. So, you know, there's land just behind us there that's just grass. It's like, oh, what can we do with that? So we're trying to work out other ways to use sustainable materials and climate resilience processes to actually grow food in areas that you can't grow food in. That includes also hydroponics and aquaponics. So we add fish to it and we have good quality nutrient plant material as well.
So it's not quite guerrilla gardening though, is it?
No, we stay away from guerrilla gardening because the councils, they cry in the showers because they have PTSD with guerrilla gardeners going in and doing this. It's great work, yes, but what happens is they leave after like 5-6 months and it turns into weeds and the council have to spend all this money to clean it all up. And then there's all these insurance issues as well. So when we come to a council, because they looked at me like you're crazy, for doing it and we don't want to deal with it. I said, no, we're a registered charity. That means there's a management system and there's a quality assurance program in it. We're not going to be, you know, developing a site and leaving in 6 months' time and for you to turn it into weeds. This is actually a whole process. And because now the model involves having a full-time farmer manage each farm and operate it, there's a lot more control that we have over that farm as well, as opposed to letting it run by volunteers. And that's the biggest issue that the councils have, because volunteers move and change and you get the occasional Karen and somebody with their ego and the whole thing falls apart and then the council has to fix up the mess.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just explain then, what's the difference? Why did you go down the charity route rather than the not-for-profit?
Charities open doors. And more people will support a charity than a not-for-profit. So it's a different level of giving. Because we want to work with others to support others, it's a more viable model to have charities. Plus then also we're DGR registered, so every donation is tax deductible. And we also, because we want to employ the long-term unemployed on our sites, we have different tax advantages with the ATO as well, which makes a better model where all the money that we're getting in goes to a farm, then also goes to pay the staff really well as well.
So if you have got a farm, for example, or an orchard, or you know, you're actually growing food on a much larger scale, but you're interested in maybe handing over 1 to 5 acres, would you be up for listening to that and taking that on board?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. That's what we're looking for now. We just were approached by a lady in Wamuran who has 25 acres. That's an old pineapple farm. Okay. So we're really interested. That's why the creek, there's water there. It works out really well. So we did an assessment on it. That worked quite nicely. There's another 5 acres at Stanmore on the lady's property. And yes, any farmers who want to give and have spare land, we'll definitely talk about that as well. But the process is, it doesn't happen instantaneously because we need to obviously fundraise, and we are a charity, we need to fund it, so we're looking at different funding models to make these things work. And how
did with this whole different business model, have you just sort of learned it as you've gone along?
Yeah, I'm making it up as I go along. Okay. And look, this is, no one is doing this kind of thing on the planet at the moment, because I've been watching a lot of other organizations that grow food. Like, growing food and giving it to people who are in need is not a new concept. There's nothing new about this whatsoever. There's the Homeless Garden Project in California. They've got 1 to 2 acres they give to the local homeless community. There's someone down in Melbourne who's doing a similar thing to Mini Farm. People in Fremantle are wanting to do the same thing. There's churches and smaller groups that have community gardens that give. That's not a new thing. The unique thing about what we're doing is we're creating a network of farms. So we want to have a spine from Brisbane to Cairns, and then we want to go down to Sydney if we can and take care of the eastern seaboard for all those who are in need. And there's a lot more people now than 1 in 6. They were the last numbers in 2021 from Food Bank of people who are struggling to actually feed themselves, and a lot of them were actually full-time employed. So we need a network, and we need full infrastructure, and we need a variety of food. So this is a unique proposition. And my skills in hospitality, because I was hospo since I left high school, and I lost my job in COVID in 2020, and the boss said, just focus on this full time, and we just smashed out. So I was doing this on the side.
Okay.
I had a full-time job, and I was doing this on the side with volunteer farms in the city, and that was a real struggle. And I was actually really happy to lose my job, so I can work on this full-time. And everyone thought I just lost my mind. And I was like, no, this is great, because within a few months, I had Mill and Farm locked in, I had money, I had Meals on Wheels locked in, and I had a full-time employee to actually farm. So it's obviously a lot better for founders to work in the charities or their organizations on a full-time level than it is on a casual level. So we did over 5 years worth of work in a year because I had time to actually smash it instead of just a few hours every week.
Yeah.
But that's yeah.
So just touching on something you said then, you said the people that are not eating properly, they're actually full-time employed.
There's a lot of people who are full-time employees who cannot afford to have meals every day. There's a lot of parents who are sacrificing their meals at nighttime so their kids can eat, and then they eat the scraps off their plate. And there's a lot of kids going to school in this country hungry and missing lunch as well. So there's a breakfast program in the Logan area. I spoke to one of the development people there in the council, and she told me this horrifying story about these kids. And it's like, hang on, this is Australia.
Yeah.
Like we always had, I'm an 80s kid, I grew up in the 80s. So back then it was all lucky country and we're smart and all this sort of stuff and rah, rah, rah. Yes, there was homelessness, and yes, there was a bit of hunger, and but I've never experienced it on this level. And when I was a kid, we used to sponsor African kids. It's like World Vision sponsor a kid overseas. Now I'm seeing sponsor an Australian kid. I'm like, something's gone wrong. We need to solve this. And because of my catering background, we don't muck around, we just get things done. So the skills have translated quite well into the position of founder and CEO. That will translate more into a chief vision officer when we have an operations manager and an admin manager when we scale up. So I'll only be focusing on certain activities and then letting operations run separately. But now, because of the small scale we're at, I do everything.
And so how are you going to find these people, particularly on farm? Are you looking more for volunteers, or are they everybody going to be paid who's working on farm?
Every time we get a new farm, we will have a full-time farm manager.
Okay.
And then we will also build in casuals as required. So each farm has to either make the money through donations, sponsorship, or sales to actually run the farm. It has to be run like a business.
Okay.
It has to be run by numbers, otherwise it won't work.
Yeah.
We can't run it with volunteers. Volunteers are a component of each farm, and they work under the team who are running the day-to-day operation.
Yeah.
It can't be done any other way. We tried volunteers for the first 5-6 years in the city, and God bless them, they're great. Volunteers are fantastic, but they only want to give so many hours, and they only want to do so much. And it's not a thing that everyone's skilled at. When you're looking at planning, harvesting, doing all this stuff, they just want to come in for a bit and then go. And so you've got to understand the market of volunteers and who's coming to the skill sets, what you need, and then you've got to cross-pollinate the two. So we had a great learning process in our site in Coorparoo, next to Timber Tots Childcare Centre. They gave us a farm or space for a farm for about 4 years, which was really great. We had in-ground farm that we had, then we turned it into grow bags, because in 2018 everything started drying up, and we were like, let's just do grow bags and see how we go instead. But the volunteers came from the local community, like they were like 2 minutes away, and we had like 20 people a weekend. And that was fantastic. So you're looking at about 20 by 2 hours, that's 40 hours on a Saturday morning worth of work. That's a whole week worth of work. Yeah. So we smashed out quite a lot. But then you have COVID, then you have, the future, there's planned for climate lockdowns. When you have these things coming, people aren't going to come. So if you're reliant solely on volunteers, your model is flawed. Yeah. So we had to be really careful with how we operated and put together all the pieces of the charity in each of the farms. It's like, no, we have to have somebody run the farm. And because we are producing food, we're an essential service. So we keep operating when the lockdowns are happening. And then we have so much space, it's all social distancing. So we have a safer environment than most office buildings, and that's because we're outside as well, and there's wind and stuff. So these are all the factors that we've considered moving forward when we're creating new farms.
Okay, and just going back to the workforce, how would you apply to get a job then with you? Is there going to be a criteria
There will be, yeah. So each job will have its own criteria. Obviously, because we're a charity, we have to make sure that we're getting the right person for the right job. So there'll be a criteria. We're connected with Young Farmers Connect. We're also connected in with a lot of employment programs now through the government. So we'll be looking in those areas, and we'll be also advertising it as well. We know a lot of the farmers in the area. So we always make sure that we have good relations with everybody, and then in the future one of them might come and work for us. So these are the kind of things that we look and get the right person who can actually run a farm.
Yeah, okay. And is there any opportunities for the younger generation who want to get their hands dirty but haven't gone to university or in the agricultural sector?
Oh, definitely. Like yeah. The Farm Day at Logan Lee will be a showcase of what we can do in other high school farms, and we've got a couple of high schools looking at that project already. The idea for that is the students will actually be involved. They've got 2 years of ag in year 7 and 8 in the high school, so they have to go through the ag program. So they'll actually be on the field, they'll be learning how the business side of it works, they'll be planting, seeding, harvesting, packing, and then giving the food away. And then we have attachment to Griffith University down there, where they'll actually have a gateway to higher education as well. And then because they volunteered with us, we'll put them first up to come back if they want to have a job with us or stay on with us as well. And because we're with a lot of farming networks, we will look for people in that sort of field as well, especially young people, because there's a lot of government programs to get people employed, and also a lot of younger people can't actually afford land to farm. So because we're a charity and we can use the land, we should have abilities to actually be able to have a plot where farmers can come on farm for us and then save up their funds and then set up their own farms in the future. So they can still farm, but then they're building and looking for other things, and they can sell into our network as well.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Circular economy there, hey?
Well, yeah, and you got to think about these things in this way, because to be a responsible charity, we need to make sure that we're getting money in all the time and we're looking for different opportunities. So coming into charity, I'm trying to think, how can we reconfigure how charities actually operate? So instead of this, brick building and you can't see inside, and it's all open. Yeah. It's the way that we do things is out of the box. And like even myself, as an executive, I get a ute, a laptop, and a phone. That's my office. We don't have buildings. We have farms, and I run the charity out of my kitchen. Bench. So, and anyone who comes in, like an admin person in the future, we have a marketing sales team, they'll be working from home. And I don't think there's a need now with all this technology for people needing to go to an office with a squinty little window like I used to have, in an air conditioned box. There's no point. We're a farming organisation, we're a farming charity. Get the people out in the field, and then if you're doing like a 5-day week, we can bring it down to 4 days because we can be efficient being online, and then the 5th day come out to a farm, and then they can work and understand how the farm works as well. So that it works out really well for life balance, and also that if you don't keep your staff happy, they're not going to work well for you. And it's the same principles apply to any organisation, including charities. Yeah. Brilliant.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Look, I think people can come to the website and take a look. If people are interested to volunteer, by all means contact us. And if they know people who are interested in actually resolving food security in this climate initiative that we're working on, we're actually looking at people coming and dropping $3.70 a month with us and becoming part of our community and actually help funding a farm every month.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's all on your website? All
on the website, and it's fully tax deductible.
Right.
Which it makes sense. It's $3.70 a month is nothing. I'm doing it myself, so I was the first one because I had to trial the online system. But it works. It's tax deductible, and we get those numbers in. We can fund a farm a month, and then then the people who are part of that have a good feeling that they're actually resolving food insecurity.
Yeah. Well, Farming Revolution will be on board then too.
Great. Perfect. Awesome.
All right, well, thank you, Nick.
No problem, thank you.
Out your time on this chilly morning.
Oh, it's nice and cold. Can't wait to get back in the heater.
Yeah. All right, and good luck with everything, and yeah, I know you're going to succeed.
Thanks, appreciate it.